we're going to be covering the roof section of the home. Thank you for joining us. My name is Rael Levin, and I've been with HomePro for about 18 years. Did just shy of 4,000 inspections for the company over the years, and now I'm teaching these webinars as well as CE. For all the information that you might want about CE on Zoom or in person, you can go to our HomePro Academy online and get some information there. So we're going to share the screen here and get right into the webinar on roofing. So here we go. So the roofing can be broken down into several sections. We're dealing with different types of roofs: flat roofs, sloped roofs. Roll roofing is one type of material. EPDM. You see a lot of that now in commercial buildings and sort of top of condominiums, perhaps. Asphalt shingles, fiberglass shingles, wood shake shingles, clay, and metal roofing. We're going to cover all of those areas. For the most part, what we're finding now in new construction is the slope roof, pretty much a gable instead of the fancy roofs that we used to see built in the 50s, 60s. With a lot of different architectural design to them. But let's run right here into the EPDM. So it's fancy name, ethylene propylene dianipolymer. It's used on low slope buildings in the United States and worldwide. So more of like a commercial application, and it's made out of oil and natural gas. So we need that as well. So EPDM lasts for about 22 to 35 years. And roll roofing, which is one of probably the cheapest type of roofing, is a 10-year life expectancy. And our standard 3-tab asphalt shingle, about 10 to 15 years. And then, of course, we have architectural shingles that have a little better look to it, little thicker shingle, life expectancy 15 to 20 years. Slate, all different types of slate. So depending on the thickness, 75 to 200 years. Clay tile at about 50 to 100, and metal roofs 40 to 70 years. I used to love to see building off the grid videos where folks are building these homes with little sloped roofs up in Alaska, Colorado, all the really cold areas that get a lot of snow, building off the grid. The metal roofs work really well. The issues are that with slate or clay or metal, we can't really get onto those roofs to crawl around or walk around on it without special equipment. The same goes really for wood shake shingle roofs as well. So let's have a look at the flat roofs here. And this is the simplest roof that we see. In this case, we're dealing with one that's down in the Atlanta area around Piedmont Park area. The little wall that you see around the actual roof itself is called a parapet. And you can see it's a flat roof, has just a slight slope to it. And the water runs off of that through little gaps that they have right here. And there are gutters on the outside, which take the water down to the ground level. So you can see here that what I'm talking about was the scupper drains. And we see the flat roof here. It's got a little bit of a slope to it, and it's got gravel on top. And the whole idea is we got to let the gravel slope toward the scuppers and toward the parapet wall, and the water runs out there down to the ground level. The biggest enemy really of any roof at all is going to be water. And of course, we get rain, so water is an issue. And so what we need to do is make sure that we always keep our roofs clean and free of debris, free of leaves, etc., in order for everything to function the way it should. So let's look at this flat roof right here. A 20-foot by 20-foot roof area. And I'm just going to switch up here to the bigger picture right here. Okay, so we're looking at 20 feet by 20 feet. For a 400 square foot building here. And when we get rain on it and there's no way for the rain to drain off of it, you're dealing with 1 inch deep of water sitting on that roof. there's 1 ton of weight sitting on that structure. And what actually will happen is when it sits on the structure like that, it causes the structure underneath to sag because of that weight. And so how do we handle that? Well, you can see here how the debris, the leaves or the trash could actually be up on that roof, and we call it ponding when the water just sits there. And you see there's a bird cage strainer right here. And so we have to be kept clear so that the water can run into that drain and away. And then we see here what actually happens is that sag, due to the weight that's on that roof, causes that sag in the structure. And you know, to think about what are we going to do here to alleviate this, well, there would be 2 ways to improve the flow of the water off of that roof. The one would be to literally tear out the structure and rebuild it, or go to a new roof drain at a lower point. So you can see the sag is in here. They've added a new roof drain. The same would be done on the opposite side here. And then they would take out the drainage above the ceiling level on out to the exterior walls and away. So you see here, shed roofs are the simplest of all the type of roofs that can be built. And this would be the structure that we'd be talking about. In this case, it's not off the grid, but in a neighborhood, and it's been built a small home right here. Perhaps an extension on the lot from the main house for a guest area. All right, so the gabled roof, that's pretty standard what we see today, symmetric or asymmetric. And that's what we see most of today in new construction. This was a hip roof. It has 4 sides to it instead of 2. We're looking at modified bitumen roofing here. So this is our roll roofing type product where you actually use heat from a torch with a flame on it, and it's heated up on the edges so that it would seal down below. And then the top would be covered either with a liquid coating perhaps, or a foil surface. And they would put on gravel as well, sloping it from high to the low area so that the rain could run off, the water could run off that roof. You see here on the bottom right how we're using that flame to heat up the actual roofing to seal it down. On the top, we see it being mopped in. So there's actually a process here where there's a big, almost like, it looks like a barbecue grill, you know, where they smoke meat, but in this case, they have a boiler, and the boiler has that roofing tar in it that gets heated up until it's liquid and able to be spread on the actual roofing product. So you see the roll roofing here. It's always a little bit of an overlap, a couple of 3 inches over each seam, so that when it seals down, it's not right at the edge where water could travel back underneath it. So we see here is a pretty standard asphalt shingle composition. And we have our granules on top here. We have the base material, which is going to be fiberglass mat or organic felt, and then the actual body or the coating of it. And we have that self-sealing strip. So when this roofing is actually brought out to the building site, there's a little sort of a little attachment here that's very thin plastic. It's just kind of ripped off. So the reason why it's done like that is because you don't want the shingles sticking to each other while they're sitting out in the yard. So they have that little protection right there, and it gets pulled off right before the installation. Architectural shingles is what we're looking at here. So it gives a nicer look to the roof, perhaps a more expensive look on the home. And this is a product that's got a lot of popularity. So when you have a great looking product, there's always going to be somebody coming along to try to copy. So what Atlas Chalet shingles turned out to try to look like the original shingles that we see back here, which is the architectural. But you can see these turned out to be defective shingles. And you can see the blisters on these, which is an indication of the deterioration of the shingle, as well as cracking. So we're always looking for this, even on new construction, of course, as well as shingles that are a few years old. This was going to probably run into an issue as a defective product, which eventually the folks that manufactured the shingle didn't step up and replace the shingles, would have probably gone to a class action lawsuit, just like some other products like Louisiana Pacific Siding and polybutylene did years ago. So these folks actually said, we'll replace the shingles, but unless there was some real pressure brought to bear, the shingles would be provided, but the labor would have to be paid for by the owner of the property. So it became a bit of a litigious issue here. All right, looking at wood shingles and shakes. So again, depending on the thickness, it would depend on the cost of these shingles. And again, you couldn't walk on them, but they do require maintenance, some type of a water sealer or a sealant of some type to be applied. Again, it's not a homeowner project. You want to get a qualified roofing contractor that deals with this type of shingle to do those maintenance things that we need to have done here with scaffolding, because walking on it is extremely slippery. So you could get hurt trying to walk on it. Also, with weights being put on these shingles, after they started to dry out a bit, would cause them to crack and break. Also, they do curl once they do dry out. So there are lots of maintenance issues with wood shake shingles. And then we're dealing with slate. Again, you can't walk on it because it is brittle, but you can see here the thicknesses and the different types of life expectancies, 35 to 75 on the Pennsylvania, life expectancy 100 years Vermont slate, and about 175 on the Buckingham slate in Virginia. So, you know, different types of slate. Again, maintenance important. And again, couldn't walk on it to really see what issues would be there. We have other methods of identifying issues here. Certainly the first look would be in the attic space to see if there was any water penetration and staining there, as well as the other methods that we'll come into in just a moment. And then, of course, we have, again, the clay tile. This is pretty common in older neighborhoods. Again, in Atlanta area, not too much new construction with this type of tile. Perhaps certainly in a subdivision, no, but perhaps a single built home might still have some of this. Again, can't walk on it for looking at maintenance issues. And then the sheet metal roofing, it also comes corrugated. There are actually some subdivisions that have been built that have that farm type look to it, and you would have the metal roofs being installed there. Super nice looking area. There's some up in the Roswell, Georgia area that I've seen, and they look very, very nice up in that area. And again, just showing here how they actually are held together, obviously not nailed like asphalt shingles are through the shingle, but with cleats and with cleat closures and seams, etc. Okay, so the question is, well, do your inspectors get on the roof? Now, inspectors do do inspections to ASHI standards. Okay, so if we can, we will. That's the goal. But there are other methods to provide information about the roof that we do share with you in just a moment. So, can you walk on the wood, slate, or clay roof? We've said no, and that's pretty much it. Not without special equipment, because it is too brittle and slippery. So we do our inspections to the standards of the American Society of Home Inspectors. And so look at the inspection objectives for ASHI. It's to document, to establish a minimum standard for home inspections performed by home inspectors who subscribe to the standard, which we do. Home inspections performed using the standards are intended to provide the client with information about the condition of inspected systems and components at the time of the home inspection. So the second part of that is to inspect readily accessible, visually observable installed systems and components listed in the standard. So looking at that first statement, A, readily accessible. So that means if I can get up there with my ladder, then I'm going to go ahead and get up there and I will get a walk on it if it's not too steep or slippery So it's a safety issue. If I feel it's safe, I'm going to get on it. And then we can provide also from the ground with binoculars, from the interior, as I mentioned, in the attic, and another method as well, which I'll share with you in a moment. So we'll provide a written report using a format and medium selected by us, and states which in systems and components were inspected and in our professional judgment are not functioning properly, significantly deficient, unsafe, or near the end of their service life. So when we talk about that, if we have a roof that is about through disclosure, we're seeing that there's some deterioration. We note that it's about 18 years old and it's a regular asphalt shingle. The life expectancy is 10 to 15 years. We would have a comment in the actual report to say that this roof shingle is near or at or past its life expectancy, and that a budget for replacement should be considered. And that would be a good way to provide or save up for if the roof does start to leak and decide to do a replacement. And then we would have recommendations to correct or monitor for future correction. And then we'd give reasoning or explanation as to the nature of the deficiency. So that's the way it would be done. So in this report here, we're looking at roof inspection was limited. And to me, the limited section of any report is the most important part of the report. We have the description, which will describe what we were looking at. And we'll have the recommendation section, which will be recommendations for repair or replacement. And we also have a section of limitations. And the limitations is where you really want to see. A lot of folks will just read kind of the Cliff Notes version of the report. Let's see what the main issues are here. But we really need to see about what the limitations are, because the limitation is something that we could not get to see. So when it says here, the roof is too steep to safely access, doing so may cause damage to the roofing materials without specialized equipment. The roof covering can be evaluated as a whole, and leaks would be evident in the interior space. This area is scrutinized when the roof is not accessible. There may be minor areas of concern that are only visible by accessing the roof, and these could go unnoticed if there are no clues or signs or issues in the interior of the home to indicate problems. And again, depending on the tolerance level of a concern to you, you may consider consulting a roofing contractor for a more extensive audit of the roof system. You can also call, text, or email an inspector for further discussion or direction. So if we couldn't walk on it, and we'd like to get our hands on it if we can, then we would have to say, well, okay, we might have looked at it with binoculars from the ground, or perhaps we got up there with the ladder just to the gutter and were able to put our hands on it, which would be considered the roof edge. But here we are getting with that little ladder and walking across, climbing up there, getting up to any area that we could actually access. And this one, even though it was a challenge, we would go on up there and get onto that roof in this particular situation and actually walk that roof. On the inside, we'd see the attic. So we would see that there's been some staining there. As a matter of fact, they even put a little catch pan here to catch any dripping water. So we would see that and be able to report that and have that repaired perhaps by the seller, or get an adjustment for roofing repair or replacement in the second round of negotiation. You can see right here some more water stains right here in the attic. We see here a little bit of mold growth actually starting now. And we got a couple of buckets here to catch the water. Okay, so we see those water stains also. They show up on the ceilings from the roof leaks. We actually provide now infrared camera. We're looking at these things so that we can see if there were leaks, even if they're not really visible to the naked eye. Perhaps there was some painting done. We could use infrared to have a look, see if there were any water stains prior. Asphalt shingle here, you can see the deterioration where the granules have washed away off of this particular roof surface. And that would tell us that the roof shingles are now beyond its life expectancy. Too many layers as well. We're only allowed to have one layer of shingle now on a home. The structure, the actual wooden structure underneath, was designed to take one layer of shingles, and for many years, multiple layers of shingles were installed, which caused roof sagging. Just like we saw in the early picture with the water, the same thing goes for the actual asphalt shingle layers. So we want to have those removed and have just a single layer on there. Patchwork, we would point that out, and certainly you see the debris in the valley here. We'd be looking in the inside of that attic as well for any signs of moisture, because obviously there'd been a leak and a patch had been done here and repairs had been done, and perhaps there was no longer a leak anymore. We'd certainly have to ask the seller if that was the case. Now we see these little white streaks on the edge of the shingle. That is granule loss there as well. This roof too is getting towards the end of its life expectancy. So from the report, we said this is asphalt shingle and the flashing material was metal. And we did the inspection from binoculars from the ground and from the roof edge, but this is the other way. And the other way that we've done now for several years is we use drones to get up onto the top of the roofs that we can't get onto. So certainly 3-story homes where we couldn't get up there or even see from the street with the binoculars, we've got our drones. And we get really good pictures from up there. You see some drone shots right here. We're looking at the shingles. We're actually looking at the vents from the heat system and from the hot water heaters. We're looking at the plumbing vents like these right here. You can see the splits in them, the rubber gaskets from the plumbing. We can get those by being up there with that drone on the high roofs, and of course, when we walk on it as well. All right, so beware of drone hijackers. I had my drone was hijacked by a bunch of school kids when I was doing some condominiums across the street from a school, and I lost the drone in the forest, but I was able to find it again, and all good. So that is our little discussion webinar on roof shingles. For any questions that you might have, you could always reach out to us at our phone number at 404-281-4789. Excuse me, 404-218-1040. Thank you for joining us, and hope to see you again soon.